I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Unlocked and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner, is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays.
Let's go, Brandon, don't you know? Let's go, Brandon, he's gotta go.
She's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Coming to you from a secret cave, hidden deep within the wilderness. This is the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we are broadcasting live from a secret cave hidden deep within the wilderness of Tennessee. That's right. We're ripping through the electromagnetic soup. We're tearing through the atmosphere. And we're tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the Dark Wolf's Den radio show for Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Folks, tonight we are going to bring back the State of Mystery series as we dive down into the state of mystery that is Oklahoma. From ghosts to cryptids and so much more. We've got a whole lot to cover and a little time to get there, and we will get there, but first, let's go ahead and see who all we have in our YouTube chat rooms, both in the Dark Wolf's Den show as well as the Ripon Rabbit Hole. How you guys doing over here tonight? It's really great to see every last one of you guys. Did you enjoy the show Sunday night, the Freedom Flame episode we did? I know I had a blast. Nothing like celebrating freedom, especially with all of you guys. Like who? Like JoJo's waving in both chat rooms. First up, glad to have you here, JoJo's. Congratulations, being first in both chat rooms. The Dark Wolf's Den show and the Ripon Rabbit Hole. Sandy B over in the Dark Wolf's Den show says, can't wait for interesting facts about Oklahoma. Don't know much about it, except Blake Shelton lives there. I didn't know Blake Shelton lived there, so I just learned something new, too. Thank you, Sandy B. She also says, US, that's right, go USA. X-Gen hanging in says, evening, fellow travelers. Did we survive the turning on of CERN? Remember, 6 o'clock Canadian, be dangerous. I do hope that we did survive it. At least I'm still here, though we may have shifted already. If not, then I expect a couple Mandela effect shifts very, very shortly, depending on what experiment they're doing. I'd really like to start tracking that. I need to make a note for myself here. Start tracking which experiments line up with shifts. AJ over in the Dark Wolf's Den show. Not to be confused with AJ, but this is AJ. This is, hey, Jerry. Hey, AJ. Glad to have you here, my friend. He says, let's go, Brandon. That's right. Who else we got over here? My Life DIY checking in. Says, here, but on and off, away from keyboard. Well, we're still glad to have you here. Just the same. Mandani Mall says, Oklahoma, look Ukahem. Okay, that's different. Look ham. I think that is the word mix around. Look a ham. Forgive me, I forgot the word that means the word mix around there. It's been a great night, right? Michael Fontaine, Twister was shot there. That's awesome. That was a really good movie, actually. Sandra Bystrom over in the Ripon Rabbit Hole. Glad to see you back, Miss Sandra. It's always a pleasure. She's been hanging out with us for a couple weeks now. Glad to have you here. Prairie Fire says, evening all. Evening, Prairie. Always a pleasure, sir. Raider Champion dropping in the Wonderland link. That is the song that you hear at the beginning of all the Dark Wolf's Den shows. She gave us special permission to use that song. Chick Mandela Effect and Michael Musco. If you want to hear that theme when we're not on, make sure you check out that link. Sandy B also in the Ripon Rabbit Hole. Got a lot of mods over here tonight. Loving seeing it. X-Gen bouncing between rooms, it looks like. Says, evening, fellow travelers. Maggie's Ace says, at Freedom Flame Sunday, I said hi to AJ, Dark Wolf, Sandy B, Raider, and all. Maggie's, we're glad you were joining us for that amazing celebration. More details on next year's Freedom Flame celebration coming up before the end of the show. Anagram, thank you, Mandani Mall. It is Look a Ham is the anagram to Oklahoma. Thank you, sir. My brain is a little frazzled as I also started a new job this week, and you learn a whole lot of stuff. You tend to lose some that you learned before, right? Just frazzles the brain all the way through. But it's good to be here tonight, guys. Maybe we can get the brain working a little better. It's so wonderful once again to see every last one of you. Like I said, we had a blast on Sunday. For those that don't know, make sure you go back and check out the Freedom Flame celebration that occurred last Sunday, March 20th, as the Freedom Flame torch was marched down the main way of Ripon into Rotary Park from the Little White Schoolhouse. Whether you are listening on YouTube in our live chat rooms or around the world on Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, the RiponRabbitHole.com, or listening on the replay on BitChute or Rumble, we're glad to have every last one of you guys along for the ride. That's right. And before we can dive deep down into this paranormal rabbit hole of Oklahoma, we have two more fun little segments to do, the first of which we call On this day in 1775, Patrick Henry proclaims, "Give me liberty or give me death," in a speech in favor of Virginia troops joining the U.S. Revolutionary War. He uttered those words on this day in 1775, and that is today's segment of Today in History.
Say what?
Our quote of the day today, folks, comes from Anonymous again. It says, "Welcome to Oklahoma, home of the Blizzaflood Quakenado." End quote. That sounds like something I would not want to encounter. Anyway, folks, that is today's segment of
Say what?
A Blizzaflood Quakenado. That sounds like everything going wrong at the exact same time, right? Oh man, lucky for us, that's still not the strangest thing about the state of Oklahoma. And here to tell us about the strange cryptid creatures of Oklahoma is our friend Ben Miller. Good to have you back with us, Ben. Tell us, does the state of Oklahoma have a large amount of cryptid creatures to choose from, my friend?
Oklahoma has a huge amount of strange creatures roaming about the land. So much so that if I were to cover each one, I would have to devote almost an entire year to this state.
Well, Ben, unfortunately we don't have a year. We've actually only got about an hour.
The problem is that many of these sightings are so locally known and talked about that they rarely make it out of county lines. In essence, we know what they are called, but other information is hard to find. Let's start with a real interesting one. Apparently in this state, there are stories that have gone back centuries about what can only be described as deer people.
Now, I've heard of frog people, I've heard of dog people, heck, we even know about the Mothmen that reside across the country, but never in my 30 years of paranormal research have I ever run across a deer person. This sounds incredibly intriguing, Ben.
While they are not seen together, there is a deer woman as well as a deer man, and neither one is very nice. According to lore, the deer woman will appear as a beautiful woman, and she will attempt to lure men into the forest with her. If a victim were to follow her, they would then notice that rather than having human legs, she is part deer.
Now, this creature honestly reminds me of the ancient Greek mythology and the god Pan, who had the upper torso of a human, but the lower half and hindquarters of a goat. One could not make much of a stretch to say that is the hindquarters of a deer, right? It's almost like these people may have been seeing the same thing back in Greco-Roman times.
Normally, it is too late at this point, and she will trample them to death. I didn't realize it at first, but it makes sense that a lot of people actually consider this being a siren of the forest.
I must agree, Ben, as we know the Siren of the Sea is the same type of beautiful woman who draws in sailors before killing them. It's not much different than this in the aspect of a beautiful woman drawing a man into the woods only to trample them.
Now, what makes this interesting is that there are other legends that claim she is not a good being, and if you happen to just see her 3 times in your life, then you will die.
Well, this is definitely one creature that I wouldn't even want to see 1 time in my life, let alone 3.
Going a step further, there are reports of a whole community of what appear to be Native Americans.
Ben, I don't think Native Americans would qualify as cryptids, my friend.
The thing is that while in the area around their settlement, you will notice that the animals in the forest seem to be fairly docile and friendly. In fact, these people can actually turn into deer people at night.
So, more like a were-deer instead of a werewolf, right? A were-creature, a human that turns into another creature. Yeah, Ben, I'll give it to you. That definitely does sound cryptid to me.
This story does remind me a lot about skinwalkers.
I don't know if I would agree particularly with that, Ben, as skinwalkers tend to turn into wolves, right, if I'm not mistaken, but just the same we know a large number of Native American legends that speak of themselves turning into a variety of different creatures.
Not to be outdone, there is a story about the male version of this thing. A man named Kyle Hang was out with his friend in the Wichita Mountains National Wildlife Refuge. The pair were trying to get some interesting photographs of the night sky. At around 10 p.m., they noticed that quite a few animals were suddenly moving past them. This included bison, coyote, elk, and even hogs. The creatures were moving in a hurried fashion and seemed oblivious to the 2 people standing nearby.
When every creature in the forest is heading the opposite way that you are, you know there is definitely something big that is scaring them away.
Kyle claimed that some of the creatures actually passed within 5 feet of them.
Sandy B says skinwalkers turn to all kind of things supposedly, as well as JoJo says nope, skinwalkers can be anything. Earl Taylor, glad to see you, as well as Earth Daughter joining in. Glad to have both you guys along for the ride.
It wasn't long after this that the pair realized the forest had become eerily silent, and this was followed with a feeling of dread and that something ominous was about. Not wanting to risk anything, Cal and his friend made it to his car and started to quickly pack all of their equipment into the trunk. Once they got into the car, Cal started the engine and began to drive away. This is when their headlights illuminated an odd-looking being standing on the road. It was described as being human-shaped, but it had the head of an elk and its eyes were a dark red color. The being just stood there watching them, but Mr. Hang wasn't interested in finding out what it was or its intent. What was obvious was that this person was the thing that all those animals that they had seen previously were trying to get away from.
What I find incredibly intriguing about this particular case file is the fear and dread that seemed to surround the area, right? We've only heard this in alien case files, where the area seems to have this odd aura about it. Not to say that it couldn't be a cryptid, but I am open-minded to the thought that a lot of these animal creature hybrids that seem to be such may not be human hybrids at all, but may actually be some type of alien. It's definitely on the table for me, but what other kind of cryptids do we have roaming around the state of Oklahoma, Ben?
Moving on to a creature that I can't find a lot of information about is an alligator man in Tahlequah.
And of course, anybody who's been listening to this show for quite some time knows we are no stranger to these reptilian-style cryptid creatures, right?
According to his story in 1842, a man was hiking through the forest when he came across an odd cave. Out of curiosity, he decided to investigate, but he didn't get farther than the mouth of the cave. In the darkness, he could make out a human form, but this wasn't what he expected. The person emerged and it had a human-shaped body, but was covered in reptile-like skin, and its head was that of an alligator. The man obviously ran away, but the creature gave chase. The man managed to escape, but the creature was seen again in another town. This is all the story I have, and I wish there was more, since I am aware of other Alligator Man stories in other states.
And I do believe we have covered the Alligator Man in another state in this series before. Ben, is that the only lizard-type creature that has been spotted in Oklahoma?
I should note that I have seen other claims of a lizard man in this state, especially around the Stillwater Cemetery, but I don't know if it is supposed to be the same thing.
Yup, that happens, says Sandra Bystrom. Dracos. Ooh, may very well be Dracos. Carol's Cookies checking in to the Dark Wolf's Den Show channel. Glad to have you, Carol.
This also seems to tie in with a creature known as the Frederick Lake Monster. Going from one oddity, we move on to a creature known as a wolf deer.
I don't know about you guys, I've never heard of a wolf deer, although I gotta say I like the name, but tell us about this interesting case file, Ben.
In the town of Calumet, a woman known only as Miss Lobb encountered something really odd. In 1951, Miss Lobb was busy working on her and her husband's farm. It was still early in the morning when her daily tasks brought her to a hill that overlooked the farm and their cow pasture. After cresting this hill, she noticed an odd-looking creature just standing there. It was described as being about the size of a gray wolf, weighing approximately 50 to 60 pounds. Its fur was reddish-brown, the tail was horse-like, appearing to be too large for the body, and it was black in color. The body looked like a dog, but its legs and head were similar to a deer. In fact, she described the legs as being very long and skinny, but the pads on the feet were fairly large. What was odd was that the creature locked eyes with the woman, but didn't move. The two stared at each other for a few minutes before Miss Law began to worry about the creature's intent. So she picked up a stick and threw it at the deer wolf. Oddly enough, the stick struck the creature, but it didn't move in the least, nor did it quit looking at the woman.
I find it incredibly intriguing that this creature has not made a single move at all. No, Earth Daughter, I can guarantee that this is not a voice bot. I've actually been in email contact with this gentleman. This is Ben Miller. This is the one we listen to pretty much every show. He has something to say about the cryptids of the state. If you're interested in other states that we haven't covered already, do make sure you do check out the Ben Miller channel.
This concerned Miss Lobb, and she decided it was time to head back to her house, all the while checking over her shoulder to make sure she wasn't being followed. Once home, she told her husband about what she had seen, and shockingly, he told her that he had seen the exact same creature 2 years prior. In his encounter, he saw the beast standing near some bushes near the farm, and much like her encounter, it just continued to stare at the man. He simply said that he didn't feel the creature meant any harm, and it walked away when it felt it was ready to.
Well, at least in the man's story, the creature actually had movement to it. I was starting to think this may have been some kind of prank, right? But if the creature actually walked away, as according to the second case file, then that makes a prank just a little bit harder to be. Not impossible, but harder to be.
After this event, the family didn't see the creature again, but it was reported in 1971 in Minnesota. I normally don't bring in stories from other states, but I feel this is important to the encounter. Apparently in this sighting, D.R. Clark and H.H. Christensen were driving near the town of Canby when they saw the same strange animal standing near a creek by the road. The pair stopped to get a better look at the creature. Clark got out of the car and the creature turned to look at the man. The being showed no fear when the man began to wave his arms. For some unknown reason, the wolf deer's lack of fear caused Clark to get upset, and he returned to the car to grab a gun. He returned to the creature, aimed his firearm, and pulled the trigger. Inexplicably, his shot missed. The animal again didn't react to the noise and simply walked a few feet to the side and lay down in the grass. The whole time it kept staring at the man. Some claim that this creature could have simply been a maned wolf smuggled in from South America, but the way it reacted makes me think it may be more than that.
And I have to agree with you on that, Ben, as any creature, especially wolf creature that I've ever heard of, would definitely be much more active in attempting to defend itself or its considered territory, right? It wouldn't just stand and stare and have very little to no interaction with those around it.
For some reason, it gives me the impression that it could have been some type of nature protector. I am also willing to bet that Mr. Clark didn't miss his shot, but bullets couldn't hurt the creature.
And we have heard of these nature protector spirits before. Generally, they come in a albino or white color, but that is not a necessity. The fact that this creature was so very docile, I would say definitely fits the category of protector for sure.
For years, there have been sightings of thunderbirds in the area as well as other states, but the one in Oklahoma is quite different.
As most of you guys know, I have a very deep-seated respect for Native American lore, especially a soft spot do I have in my heart for the Thunderbird creatures.
It is described as having a wingspan of 160 feet, and oddly enough, it is featherless. As such, many stories claim that it is more dragon-like than bird.
Or perhaps even maybe pterodactyl-like?
However, it is known to take livestock and even children. This made many families fear going outside, and in fact, a lot of stories claim that settlers actually left the area due to the creature.
You know, it makes me wonder those stories that you hear about eagles and other creatures stealing children. Perhaps it is not an eagle at all, but more of these type birds.
Apparently, it is said that the creature was killed in the 1920s by a man in the town of Clarita. The body of the beast was thrown into a ravine, and there are claims that the body, or should I say bones, are still there.
I highly doubt that the bones are still there, because if we know about it, folks, you can guarantee our government knows about it, and they will do everything they can to hide the truth. We all know that for a fact.
Let's look at a few humanoid type of beings that should be considered, dare I say, Bigfoot-esque, but I'm not sure.
Wait, what do you mean Bigfoot-esque, Ben?
In December of 1970, a farmer in El Reno awoke to find the doors to his chicken coop had been torn off its hinges, and strange human-looking handprints were left all over the structure. The man called the Game Commission, and they in turn called Larry Curtis, who worked for the Oklahoma City Zoo. When they investigated the coop, they found that the handprints were 7 inches long and 5 inches wide. They belonged to a primate, and the thumb appeared to be crooked and disfigured.
To give you guys some perspective on what kind of size that finger really is, the general adult human male's hand, from the bottom of the palm to the very tip of the middle finger, the longest finger usually, is only 7 to 7.5 inches long. It's said that the fingers, each finger of this creature was about 7 inches wide, so each finger was the width of an entire human hand.
The being left prints in the dirt that made it apparent that it walked on all fours, but when Larry compared the prints to other known animals, none of them matched. Mr. Curtis thought the markings resembled a gorilla, but the evidence didn't support this. To this day, no one knows what the creature was, but it has the funny name of the El Reno Chicken Man.
And I have to agree with Ben on this one. It definitely does not sound like a gorilla would fit the evidence of this case file, but it's not the only Bigfoot-esque, as you said, Ben, type creature in Oklahoma. Is that correct?
The creature known as the McCurtain County Man Beast is an interesting story. A rancher who wished to remain anonymous.
Now, I gotta say, Sandra Bystrom brings up a really good point here that has kind of escaped me a number of times. The giants mated with animals, says Sandra, and that very well could explain where the wild man Bigfoot-esque creatures come from, as Ben just put it.
Anonymous lived near the town of Idabel, and he claimed to have encountered the creature 3 times. Once in 1964, 1975, and 1977. With the sighting in 1975, he claimed to be hunting near Little River near the Yashal Creek, when he suddenly saw this thing appear. He said it walked upright like a man, but it was bent over. Its arms hung down past its knees, it was covered in grayish-black hair, was about 8 feet tall, and sort of shuffled while it walked. The rancher made a noise, and the creature ran off into the forest. The man followed, but couldn't keep up. However, he did find a clump of the creature's hair high up in the trees. He collected the hair, and took pictures of tracks that he would later find. At the request of a friend, he sent the photo and hair in for analysis, and the results came back inconclusive. Yet, the lab did request to keep the hair and photo for their files. It should be noted that other notable sightings of similar beings are called the Noxi monster and the Green Hill monster. In one sighting, the creature was very much Bigfoot-like, but had the odd feature of cat-like eyes that were visible from a distance.
And as Ben said, there are a number of Bigfoot-esque creatures that seem to be roaming the lands of Oklahoma, and I would expect nothing less with the wide open area that is available and untouched by humans around that state. And as we found, there is a number of strange creatures that seem to reside in Oklahoma, but it's not the only strangeness that tends to reside in the state. As we'll find in the second half, we have a number of hauntings that seem to also happen within the state of Oklahoma, and we'll get to all that and more here in the second half, but we have to go ahead and take a network break right here, folks. So my name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and you're listening to the Dark Wolf's Den radio show exclusively on Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. We'll be right back with the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den show after these messages. Stick around. Don't touch that dial. That's right.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Hi everyone, it's AJ, the Ripon Rabbit. Are you enjoying tonight's Dark Wolf's Den show? State of mystery for Oklahoma? I know I am. If you are and you haven't done so already, please hop on over to our website, riponrabbithole.com. That's RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. There you can sign up for your exclusive Backstage VIP pass. It's going to give you unfiltered access down the rabbit hole to where the conversation continues after the show. Did you enjoy last weekend's Freedom Flame celebration? Oh my goodness. It came so fast, and it went just as fast as it came. But have no fear, it will be back again next year. That's right, the 2023 Freedom Flame. The countdown has begun. We're less than 362 days away from the annual Freedom Flame celebration. Oh my goodness, if you did not participate and celebrate along with us virtually or physically this year, you missed something really great. And you can see the archive of this year's Rekindling celebration at thefreedomflame.com/2022. That's THEFREEDOMFLAME.com/2022. 2022. It's going to give you a perspective of just exactly what it was like to participate in this year's historic event. My top hat's off to every single one of you who paid attention and sent in a picture for a new feature called the Hall of Flame. That's right. So many creative people taking their candles this year to a way next level. Oh my, oh my. This year's Hall of Flame is absolutely incredible. I'm going to archive the entire archive of Halls of Flame on the main page and add everyone who's been a long-time listener and submitted their flames from the past. But I can tell you, next year, start thinking about staging your candle, your Freedom Flame light, again next year. We have a year to focus on this celebration again. We'll return back to tonight's topic, State of Mystery, with Jerry Hicks and the Dark Wolf's Den Show for the state of Oklahoma. You're listening to the Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, home of the Freedom Flame, RiponRabbitHole.com.
Did you know that Jerry published a book? That's right, I am actually now a published author. You can check it out. It's called Moon Madness, available on Amazon. $7 for paperback, $12 for paperback, $7 for Kindle. We'll get it right in a minute. Once again, that's called Moon Madness, available on Amazon.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And welcome back to the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den Radio Show for Wednesday, March the 23rd, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Folks, in the first half, we've went over a number of strange cryptid creatures, and that's still not the strangest thing about Oklahoma. That's right, as in the second half, we're going to dive deep down the rabbit hole of the hauntings of Oklahoma. Like the first one on our list tonight.
The Philbrook Museum of Art. The Philbrook Museum of Art in Tulsa is housed in a historic 1920s villa with sprawling grounds and beautiful gardens, and is the perfect place to kick off this countdown. Many staff members and visitors have reported paranormal happenings here throughout the years, such as the feeling of someone standing behind them, otherworldly orbs and lights in the sky, a ghostly candle that floats through the halls, and the statues watching visitors, even turning their heads to follow passerbys.
This, to me, sounds more like a paranormal vortex or portal of some type, mainly with the fact of the lights in the skies, right? That doesn't normally fit ghost cases. The orbs do, but the light in the skies tend to be more towards the UFO files, right? But that's not even the creepiest part. The creepiest part, in my opinion, is the statues following one with their gaze. That, to me, is incredibly creepy. I don't know about you guys, but that is one paranormal instance that I hope I do not ever encounter, because as you know, statues are not supposed to move, right? That's right up there with those creepy dolls like Robert and Annabelle, right?
The Poncan Theater. The Poncan Theater in Ponca City was built in 1927 and has hosted plays, concerts, and movies over the years. It has built quite a reputation amongst the paranormal community, as there is a spot that looks suspiciously like blood stained into the ceiling. Many have tried to remove it throughout the years, through cleaning, renovations, and other methods, but it always comes back the very next day.
As creepy as it is, the returning blood stain is not something that we're hearing about for the first time, right? We have ran across this particular type of case many, many times over case files, the stain that just won't go away.
Also reported are disembodied footsteps, the sound of tribal war drums, and full-bodied apparitions that are known to appear and disappear in an instant.
Of course, we're used to disembodied voices. That's been pretty consistent among case files. That definitely rules out stone tape. The apparitions may be a stone tape, but the sound of drums as well as the disembodied voices is more of an environmental manipulation of some type, right? So we definitely know that this is an active haunting area.
The Old Santa Fe Depot. The Old Santa Fe Depot in Guthrie was built in 1903, closed its doors in 1979, and once housed a Harvey House restaurant. Many have reported seeing a ghostly Harvey gal around the halls, and it's speculated this may even be Pearl Harvey. Others have cited the translucent apparition of a woman in Victorian-era clothing rounding corners and watching the tracks from an upstairs window.
These apparitions really intrigue me because as much as I would like to say they're just stone tape repetitions, it doesn't seem that way, right? It almost seems like they're still moving around and acting as if they were still alive. Almost like two realities smashed together, right? It makes you wonder if these spirits, quote unquote, even know that they are dead.
Also reported are objects moving on their own, strange mists floating through the halls, and disembodied voices heard early in the morning.
And that's yet another strange piece of this case file is normally these apparitions aren't daily timed. Like, it doesn't necessarily always mention in these case files that it's in the morning or in the evening. Most of the time these are random events. It's really interesting to me that this case file specifically speaks of disembodied voices only in the morning.
Fort Reno. Fort Reno in El Reno began in 1874 to protect the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes of the area during the Red River War. The fort was abandoned in 1908 and brought back into use as a prisoner of war camp during World War II.
I've said it before on this show and I will say it again. It would intrigue me more if these forts and army bases didn't have a haunting opposed to having one. As we know, war is very traumatic and emotional. Any kind of battle really is, but that fits our recipe for haunting, right? High trauma, high emotion, high chance of haunting. And places like army bases and forts and where fighting has occurred, battlefields especially, really tend to follow this recipe. So the fact that we have yet another fort on our list is more so par for the course, right?
Visitors to the site report the apparitions of soldiers at their old posts, shadowy figures, and ghostly children seen running across the grounds.
This so far sounds more like stone tape hauntings, just these figures or entities, whether children or soldiers, just replaying the actions in time over and over.
Military commands and disembodied voices are heard echoing through empty rooms, and weird images have been known to show up in photos.
And this part is more actively haunting. To catch anything in a photo, you would need an active haunting, right? The disembodied voices also, once again, suggest a environmental manipulation of some type. And anybody who has been listening to this show for a while knows that one thing we try to cover in each state, if we can find a case file for, is the haunted colleges and universities of the state. And Oklahoma has its fair share.
Southeastern Oklahoma State University. Southeastern Oklahoma State University opened in Durant in 1909, and according to staff and students, several buildings on campus are said to be haunted. Morrison Hall, built in 1911, once had a pool in the basement. Legend says that one night someone stumbled into the pool and drowned, and their foggy spirit has been seen around campus ever since.
It almost makes one wonder, once again, as I mentioned earlier in the show, if some of these spirits even know that they are dead, if their consciousness carries on as if nothing has changed for them, right?
In Montgomery Auditorium, a campus maintenance worker lost his life when he saw this spirit and fell from the ladder he was standing on. Named George by staff and students, the maintenance worker's spirit is still seen and felt throughout the auditorium.
Now, here's a case file that we don't get a lot, right? A ghost caused by another ghost. But you have the high emotion, the fear of seeing the first ghost, the high trauma, the falling to the death, which definitely led once again to yet another haunting because of the first haunting. Definitely not a case file we get every day here, right guys?
There have been several rumors throughout the years about a possible murder or suicide that occurred on the consistently locked third floor of Shearer Hall. Students hear objects sliding across the floor, footsteps, and unexplainable sounds. Through the third floor windows, eerie furniture can be seen, lights flicker, and odd shadows dart out of sight.
I gotta say, that is a lot of haunting activity on a floor where nobody is supposed to be. Once again, it is completely locked off from the rest of the building, yet you hear and see things there constantly. An interesting case file for sure. But that isn't the only college that we have on tonight's list of haunted places in Oklahoma.
The University of Tulsa. The University of Tulsa was established in 1894, with the current campus opening in 1908 with the completion of Kendall Hall. In the dorms, legend says that a girl took her phone off the hook before taking her own life. To this day, students report hearing the sounds of someone in their dorm room at night, and when they go to investigate, finding their own phone off the hook.
And I think we can all agree that suicide definitely falls under our recipe of high trauma plus high emotion.
Tyrell Hall is haunted by a phantom pianist. Music is heard drifting from the building's upper floors between 12:30 and 2.
Wait. It's haunted by what? I've got to rewind and play that again. It's haunted by what?
Haunted by a phantom pianist.
Pianist.
Music
Okay.
is heard drifting from the building's upper floors between 12:30 and 2 a.m. But when anyone goes to investigate, the music stops.
Of course, this is not the first time that we have heard phantom music in a case file, right? I've said a number of times that is like the one haunting thing I wouldn't mind, having free music playing while I'm going to sleep, especially piano music, right? There's just something calming about piano music a lot of times. Very intriguing piece of this case file.
Throughout campus, misty apparitions are seen, objects are known to move on their own or disappear entirely, and books fly off shelves, narrowly missing those close by.
So it sounds like this college campus has a wide variety of hauntings occurring, from the strange music to playing Dodge-a-Book, which doesn't exactly sound fun, right? But we can definitely say there is a wide variety of active haunting activity on this campus.
Fort Washita. Fort Washita was built in Durant in 1842 to protect Native American tribes in the area. It was abandoned at the beginning of the Civil War, and Confederate troops held the fort until the end of the war, setting fire to it as they left. According to locals, reports of hauntings date back to the end of the Civil War.
Like I said earlier in the episode, I expect pretty much any military post to have its fair share of hauntings, but even more so when it comes to the Civil War, the most emotionally traumatic war in American history. So any area that was involved in the Civil War would surprise me more not having a haunting than having one.
The most famous ghost seen here is that of Aunt Jane. She is seen as a woman in white, missing her head. Legend says that she was beheaded for her gold, and that her spirit wanders the grounds forever in search of her lost fortune. There are several stories stating that her gold is buried somewhere on the fort grounds. This claim is supported by the multiple treasure hunters who have come to the area in search of her money, only to walk away empty-handed, claiming that an unseen force kept them from digging a single hole.
If there's any treasure hunters in the audience, here's a place for you to definitely try to check out, especially if you're a paranormal researcher also.
Those brave enough to stay the night have reported terrifying nightmares, footsteps, personal objects disappearing from locked rooms, and several have been awoken by the sensation of being strangled.
Wow, that got dark quick. It's one thing to have nightmares, which, again, if you know the area, perhaps it's more of a mental thing. I'll give you that. But to wake up feeling like you're being strangled, that's a line too far, even for me.
The entity here is said to attack women more often than men, and several report feeling threatened and extremely afraid. Throughout the fort, footsteps are heard, disembodied voices echo from empty rooms, and phantom soldiers patrol their old posts.
That would be something, right? To be walking around the fort and just suddenly be passed by a phantom soldier. Kind of reminds me more of the caretaker ghost, right? But there's a large variety of ghosts, it seems, in the state of Oklahoma. But what do you guys think? With the cryptid creatures and the phantoms that seem to be spread across the state, is Oklahoma a state of mystery, or are we barking up the wrong tree? In the end, folks, all you can do is look at the evidence, apply a little common sense, and you be the judge. We got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Radio Show for Wednesday, March the 23rd, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Folks, the den may be closing, but don't you worry, the weekend fun has only just begun. That's right, this is going to be a bit of a wild card weekend. So we have planned the State of Mystery of Oregon coming up this weekend. However, there may be a very special episode that we do tomorrow. We won't know until tomorrow, so make sure that you check out the riponrabbithole.com for any schedule changes that we might have. Also, on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we have a number of guests lined up here on the Ripon Rabbit Hole, but we are unsure of their availability at the time. So again, make sure that you are paying attention to the riponrabbithole.com and the live schedule, as it will most likely be changing on the fly this weekend. So it's kind of a wild card weekend, like I said. So if you haven't already, make sure that you go over to the riponrabbithole.com. That is RIPON.com. Over there, you need to sign up for the Backstage Pass. It is and always will be free. This is going to get you access to the rest of the site. That's going to have everything from our live schedule to the multiple forums and groups that we have over there. Guys, if you haven't checked out the groups on the Ripon Rabbit Hole, what are you waiting for? You are definitely missing a treat. There is a variety of groups over there. Whether you're into the Mandela effect, whether you would like to drop us a line for future show ideas, whether you'd like to drop AJ a line for future show ideas, or lucid dreaming if you're into that. If I believe there's a cooking group over there. There is a variety of groups over there to choose from, and if you don't find one that you like, you can make one yourselves. That's right. Real quick, my grandson would like to say something. Go ahead, say it. You be the judge.
You be the judge.
One more time.
You be the judge.
It was killing him. He had to say it, folks. It was really getting on his nerves that he hadn't said it. So Thank you, Bubby. I appreciate that. Anyways, folks, like I was saying, if you can't find the group that you want over there, do make sure that you make your own. That's one of the great things about the community-generated press that is the RiponRabbitHole.com. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you check out our 24/7 Backstage Lounge, my personal favorite place to hang out, and where I'm going to be here in just a few minutes, as a matter of fact, and I would love to see every last one of you guys there. As a matter of fact, on Sunday night, we had a couple new visitors over to the Ripon Rabbit Hole 24/7 Backstage Lounge. It was great to hang out with Earl Taylor and those others, variety of others that come back and join us that night. I absolutely love seeing every last one of you guys back there. If you don't have a camera and a microphone, that's okay. You can still come back and hang out in the text chat, right? It's a wide range of fun. And again, it is most important this weekend above all that you do check out the RiponRabbitHole.com every day, as our schedule is wild card scheduled this weekend. We have a lot of fun planned, I can tell you that much. Speaking of fun, Sunday was a load of fun. If you did miss the show on Sunday, it's okay, because you can go over to thefreedomflame.com. That is thefreedomflame.com. THEFREEDOMFLAME.com. We've got the replay and the recap of the 2022 Freedom Flame episode, and as AJ announced earlier, the Hall of Flame will be on the main site. I've got my candle in the Hall of Flame. I know I seen Earth Daughter's amazing collage that she put together. She had the truckers, and well, she had the mini trucks representing the trucker convoy, and the candle, Raider Champion had an amazing beeswax candle. There was a variety of different Freedom Flames, and the Hall of Flame will be, and I do believe is, up and running. But do check out the freedomflame.com and stay up to date, as we have just under 362, I think it's 361 and some change days now until the next Freedom Flame celebration, and it always lives at the bottom of every page on the RiponRabbitHole.com. With that said, folks, we have to get out of here for tonight. Make sure you stay tuned tomorrow and every day to the Ripon Rabbit Hole to see what is coming up next. On behalf of AJ the Ripon Rabbit, Chick Mandela Effect, Michael Musco, Walt House, everyone involved with Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, as well as our friends at the Red Shed Studios for this amazing music. My name's Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And until we meet again, remember, stay awake, but dare to dream. Good night, everybody. How yeah! That's right. Bye now.
Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stops. sinner? Is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion.
Don't forget, folks, if you do want to help support us here, you can definitely check out our book, Moon Madness, on Amazon. $7 for the Kindle, $12 paperback. We'd appreciate all the support you can help give us. And you get a book.
Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Do make sure, once again, I cannot reiterate enough, you go over to the riponrabbithole.com, RIPON, to stay up to date with our entire schedule. With no matter what show we're bringing, we bring it to you tomorrow night. See you then, guys.